BBC Glasgow. Closer and just got a look.
Mask your thoughts and get you out of trash. Don't let it do what they ask. It's alright, okay, sorry, but you can't pray. Gotta do what you want. Little superstition, this ain't a competition. Do what you need to.
These stickers.
Hello, should everybody gather round as close as possible?
I don't know how folks didn't hear of this. Just to answer, I can't see who put that last comment up. I'm sorry. David, maybe you.
Hello, right, thank you all for coming. Including those who are not listening. Those of you that know me, my name is James Crawford. I'm a former journalist who worked in weekly papers. And I'm here when we go to the next place last year. And unfortunately, the people who should be out here, should be here, are in there. Here we are again, still here, still fighting for the truth and for freedom and for justice. 3 years on and we've never gone away. How could we? When we protested outside this building 2.5 years ago, we could all see where we were being taken. We tried to warn others, but few would listen as they fell for the constant mainstream media fear-mongering. So we came here to express our defiance against this evil corporation, the BBC, otherwise known as the British Brainwashing Corporation, and the chief orchestrator of a dystopian nightmare for the past 3 years. The BBC led a mainstream media war on every aspect of our lives, and the toll was devastating. The NHS was trashed, economies and small businesses destroyed. Entire populations, and particularly the young and elderly, came under constant psychological attack. Millions of people worldwide have been killed or seriously injured after being hounded and coerced into taking experimental and highly toxic injections they never needed. We know the global elite, governments and big pharma are to blame. So are those in medicine, the justice system and academia, all those who stayed silent and complicit. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. The BBC and the rest of the mainstream media are the biggest villains of them all. The media should have been our watchdogs, saying enough is enough. They should have exposed the exaggerations, the lies, the deceit of governments and big pharma-sponsored scientists. Instead, they pushed the lies and censored and attacked anyone who spoke or dared spoke the truth, or dare ask questions. None of this should have happened. None of it. The lockdowns, the restrictions, the toxic injections. People like Alex Mitchell would not be crippled. John Watt would not be a physical wreck. I've just spent 2 hours at a vaccine memorial along with a person that spoke of their vaccine injuries. It was unbelievable. There are countless others in the same situation as Alex Mitchell and John Watt. Real people who were effectively murdered. Real people, many young, whose lives will never be the same. Lockdowns. What about those sick and in pain who could not get diagnosis or treatment? It was all down to the BBC and their like.
Also blindness.
They failed them and they failed everyone. They failed them and they failed everyone. They have so much blood in their hands. They didn't just fail to ask basic questions. They made truth a lie and a lie the truth. They pushed fear hour after hour, day after day. 3 years on, they still do it. And they spread hate and division. Asked, is it time to put the squeeze on the unvaccinated? She actually said that, matter of fact, and no one batted an eyelid. Imagine if she'd said that about Jews or blacks. The witch hunt against the unvaccinated became that legitimised, that scary. At the same time, BBC editorial bosses decided not to tell anyone about the horrendous injection harms. Can you believe that? So-called journalists, it's beyond comprehension, it's evil. 2.5 years ago, I said there was not a real journalist in that building. Nothing has changed. A simple definition of journalism is fair, balanced, and thing. That's it. It's that simple. Fair, balanced, and accurate. And they failed every time. These people the people in these buildings, these media buildings, they're sick. They're infected by something dark. So dark they will even destroy and harm their own family and friends with their actions. A real journalist must fight for the truth, never give up. Even if it's just to ask question after question. And if a boss gets in your way, you stand your ground. And if the boss doesn't like you being an awkward bastard, you get the hell out and you tell your truth somewhere else. Truth should be everything. You do not stay silent about soaring excess deaths. You do not sell your soul for a nice wage and a pension, just to become nothing more than a mouthpiece for government, Big Pharma and Bill Gates. I wonder who these people are in there, I really do. What lies do they tell themselves? How do they sleep at night? They're not human beings. They have no substance, they have no character. They're empty shells. It is left to everyone here to be the beacons of light and truth, justice and freedom. You have never had a more important task. It's a tough path and you're far from alone. There are millions of us around the globe and we're more resolute than ever.
You're the 99%.
We know too much and we're not going away. Appreciate that and appreciate each other. I appreciate every one of you. You have been my support and my strength week in, week out throughout this battle. I believe we are truly blessed. Thank you. going to introduce the next speaker. You all know who she is. It's Moira from Dundee, who's been the most amazing, inspirational campaigner for 3 years now. And nobody can hold this good lady back. Moira.
Now, it's difficult to know where to start with the BBC crimes, but I'll just talk a wee bit about BBC Question Time, in which nobody's really allowed to question anything. Because I went to the BBC Question Time in Dundee a few years ago with the lovely Fiona Bruce, who wouldn't grill anybody. Anyway, we were led into a room and we were asked to write questions on a sheet of paper, and then they vet the questions before you go into the actual auditorium, and they only let people ask really inane questions. I remember one was, I think Boris Johnson was talking about building a bridge to Northern Ireland, and somebody asked the question, is a bridge to Ireland a bridge too far? You know what I mean? And they all laughed. So it's just a lot of garbage, and they talk about Brexit all the time, you know, for the sore losers. But anyway, the serious point I want to make about this programme is that in October 2021, they had Anas Sarwar on it, and he is the leader of the Scottish Labour. I mean, we're talking about the opposition, and Fiona Bruce said, and what do you think, Anas? And he said, well, we know who's not vaccinated, we know where they live, and we need to go door to door hunting. Now, these are not, this programme, I know, it's not recorded live. So the BBC bosses ought to have taken that out. It was causing fear, distress and alarm to especially the older people who pay their TV licence watching that. They're living alone, and they have elected not to take up the offer of vaccination. Remember, it's an offer, or is it an order? Is it an order? It seems like it. So those 95-year-olds who have chosen the offer, who maybe even fought in the war, for what did they fight for if we're just going to get fascism through the back door? Anyway, it wasn't put out live, this programme. They should have edited it out. They didn't, because they wanted to put fear and alarm into everyone. That's what they wanted. And they're at it again, this SNP MP from East Renfrewshire, what's her name, Graham? Kirsten Oswald. Now, and this is not a joke, she's actually the SNP equality spokesperson, right? And she's saying to the Home Office, do you think it's time to add people in the anti-vax movement, whatever that is anti-harm as far as I'm concerned. She says, is it time for the Home Office to add people in the anti-vax movement and treat them as terrorists? Right. Well, you won't be a big part of this crowd, because they are the domestic terrorists. They're aiding and abetting it all. Now, and we still live in fear. At any point they could decide. Now, the other thing about that, we did report Anas Sarwar to the police and they did nothing. They said a crime wasn't committed. I believe it was. He also said, we know who's not vaccinated. We know where they live. Now, the police say they don't have a database of who's not vaccinated. Do the ASPs? Have they got a database of our health records? I mean, this is deadly serious. He didn't say the NHS know who's not vaccinated. He didn't say that. He said, we know. We know. Who is we? So we're living in very, very dangerous times. And I would just like to end with a wee chant. You might want to join in with me. We read the light, because you talk shite. 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 We read the light.
Bruce Scott. Right, the next speaker is psychologist Dr. Bruce Scott. Hello everyone, can you hear me okay? Well, 3 years. I've been talking about this sort of stuff for 3 years. A lot of my stuff that I write about is the use of applied psychology used by the UK and Scottish government for the COVID fiasco. Now, for those who don't know what it's all about, it's essentially brainwashing and changing people's beliefs. I call it menticide. It is the use of illegal and unethical applied psychology, and essentially the SPI B of the SAGE scientific committee who advised the government for the COVID pandemic, so-called, in their documents they said that the people who were complacent had to be made more fearful. People had to be made terrified, and people had to be shamed for not following the restrictions. This was alongside the BBC setting up their disinformation unit with Mariana Spring to combat anyone who went against this narrative. However, this use of applied psychology broke the British Psychological Society guidelines, and is essentially illegal because you're meant to get consent for psychological interventions on the population. You're meant to get consent for anything that they're trying to do to manipulate behaviour. They didn't do this. Now, they also use coercion with the restrictions. Now, in Scotland, it's a crime to coerce people. The BBC know it's a crime to coerce people, but no one in the BBC ever mentioned that on the Daily News. This is on the Scottish Government website. Controlling behaviour. This is so if you notice it, you've got to get in touch with the police. Controlling behaviour is a range of acts designed to make a person subordinate and or dependent by isolating them from sources of support, exploiting the resources, stopping them work, and capacities for personal gain. Test and trace, track and trace, and masks, and all the PPE money-making scams, depriving them of the means of need for independence and resistance and escape, and regulating their everyday behaviour. Coercive behaviour is a continuing act or a pattern of acts of assault, threats, humiliation, intimidation, or other abuse that are used to harm and punish or frighten their victim. Well, what's happened the last 3 years? People have been stopped working. They've been locked in, etc., etc. It's completely against human rights legislation and against psychological ethics globally. Now, one of the big things that really struck me about this was that the psychologists knew they were breaking the ethical guidelines of their code of ethics, because when they isolated people, especially the elderly in care homes where they couldn't see their relatives, medical people and psychologists know the fact that sometimes the dividing line between life and death is for someone who's dying or very ill to have the touch or the voice of a loved one next to them. That sometimes is enough to bring them through. So what they done when they isolated people and stopped people having the social support in society, they knew that a direct consequence of those policies was that people would die. The BBC never reported that. Funny that. And now, well, COVID suddenly has kind of went into the background a little bit. It's still there though. However, we now have the net zero totalitarianism, the 20-minute cities.
We now have the war, the lies on the Ukraine war. We have the filthy sex education in the schools, the transgender ideology. Now, you would think that there were some murmurings in the media that, oh, maybe the psychologists have went too far and they regret it a little bit. Well, how come in the latest Climate Change Committee document published by the House of Lords in October, they said that the use of applied psychology during COVID was really good, and we can use the same methods to apply it to net zero and climate change. So it's right in black and white in a government document. They've got to be using the same methods of fear-mongering and shaming people into compliance to follow this agenda. Now, what's been happening is extremely stressful, all this fear-mongering and coercing people and stressing them out and frightening them with net zero, and you're not going to be able to drive a car, and you're not going to fly, and you can't operate your business because of net zero legislation. Well, this stress kills, and that's another thing. They know, the psychologists know that the stress of all what's happening will be killing people. Mental health has gone up. Claire Hawkey, the mental health minister at the beginning of 2020, I told her, I said, the restrictions that you place upon the people of Scotland will result in children and adults, their mental health will deteriorate. Well, I was right. I hate to have said I told you so, Claire Hawkey, but I told you, and so this is your legacy. And the BBC's, because you didn't speak up either. But this is where it gets very serious. These methods of applied psychology have been used before in East Germany under the Stasi. It was called Selbstzerstörung. Did I pronounce that right? It's basically psychological subversion and an attempt to demoralise the population through different methods. The Stasi wanted to affect the self-confidence, self-esteem, drive up fear, drive up confusion and mistrust of all the institutions in their country. Now, post-World War II, interestingly, the European Association, Psychological Associations, decreed that we had to be very careful with the use of applied psychology, and we had to maintain the rights and dignity and avoid harm at any cost. Of course, the Stasi broke that. And then when the Berlin Wall came down, it was all, well, this should never happen again. The use of applied psychology should never happen. But then you have Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib. And of course, if you would look at the pictures of Guantanamo Bay, they used face masks on the prisoners. That was no accident. No accident at all. And because the use of face masks has a lot of physiological elements to it which drive up stress and psychological aspects of submission. The face masks have been used as a tool of oppression. This is related to Binderman's chart of coercion. And this is why it's been illegal what's happened to us, and it'll be ongoing illegal. This is the Binderman's chart of coercion is a tool designed to demonstrate and explain coercive methods of stress manipulation used to torture prisoners of war. And it's been applied to explain the use of coercive techniques used by perpetrators of domestic abuse. So one of the methods is isolation. Isolation, which is stopping people seeing each other, depriving them of social contacts. Monopolisation of perception. Fixes people's attention upon immediate predicament, the news, and it eliminates information not in compliance with demands. It censors other information. Humiliation and degradation, the masks, the marks on the floor, the sanitizer. And this exhausts people, all this. And the threats, like Anas Sarwar, we know where he lived. So, here we are, 2023, this authoritarianism is upon us. Solzhenitsyn, the Russian author, warned that this would come upon the West. Well, it's here now. He told us not to live by lies. And the media have been complicit in spreading lies with COVID, now the net zero, the war in Ukraine, etc. And then look at the excess deaths. Excess deaths. People warned about the vaccine, and now we've got excess deaths. The BBC are silent. We've got long COVID supposedly, but long COVID's not been associated by the BBC or any of the scientific experts with the vaccine or the mask wearing or any of the stress of what's been happening, the use of applied psychology.
Is it true for the BBC?
You know? And what's disgusting? What is disgusting for me as a psychologist is the psychologists of Scotland, mental health professionals, mental health organisations have been completely silent and complicit. So all I've got to say to end is we have to have faith, whether it's a religious faith or a faith in humanity. We have to understand what the oppression is, and it is very, very real. History showed that the use of this applied psychology is deliberate, but it's also illegal. And we have to link up with people, like-minded people, and get in touch with the councils and attend meetings in our local area to start making our voices heard. That we will not accept this.
Wonderful man.
So, this is just a little quote from an article about the use of applied psychology in East Germany. I'll just end with this quote. In terms of society, the findings to be gained by such studies could form one building block in cultures of remembrance as part of German and Middle European history. The culture of remembrance has an important intermediary function in overcoming traumatic events in political systems. So we have to remember what's been going on. However, in Germany, it tends to be considered more as a private concern or a concern of individual groups in relation to the victims of communism. At the same time, however, studies of trauma victims prove that they find it healing, significant when their suffering is also acknowledged with public sympathy. And the people who've suffered in the last 3 years should be acknowledged and not being labelled extremists by stupid politicians in the SNP. We conclude with a general statement to the international psychology that there must be a total ban on abusing psychology as described, and also hopefully a system where people are held to account for breaching these ethics, not only in the professional community but in society at large. And the BBC have been complicit in this game of abusive psychology, and they should be held to account. The overarching goal for our profession remains what the United Nations Sustainable Goal 16 refers to: promoting peaceful and inclusive societies and providing access to justice for all. Well, let's put United Nations Article 16 into place then and hold this lot to account. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce Scott. It's just a pity there's not more wonderful voices in the academic world like Bruce who are prepared to come out and state the bleeding obvious. Now, the next speaker is a very special man. You all know him. He's made himself well known around the country on Instagram. He's actually a wonderful speaker. He didn't come here today to speak. He just came here to give us his support. It's John Watt. He's going to have this chair in case he needs it. Right, a big applause for John Watt. John, thank you.
How's it all going? Good. I didn't actually come to speak today, I just came to actually show support. So I don't have anything written, I don't have anything planned at all. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you for the support you showed myself, Alex Mitchell, and many other vaccine injured that are not only in Scotland and in the UK, but around the world. Without people like you, I don't think I would survive, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Yes.
A year ago, November 2021, just want to tell you, the BBC and anybody else that's protecting these, I swear, aye, whatever they are. November 19, 2021, I took that Pfizer booster vaccine. I've been left in my bed to rot. NHS don't acknowledge me. Mainstream media don't acknowledge me. They tell me I'm medical misinformation. Imagine how you would feel if that was you.
Scum!
Exactly, mate. Fucking scum. In and out hospital, John, anxiety, health anxiety. I'm sitting there grey, can't stand, in a wheelchair, vomiting, 24/7. I lost over 25 kilograms in weight. Imagine that was your child. Imagine that was your mother.
They don't care.
Exactly. They do not give a fuck. The BBC. Hear me now. Hear me now, BBC Scotland. Hear me now. STV. Sky.
Tell them all, mate.
Shame on you!
Shame on you! Criminal!
Take the money out of people's lives.
You're right. All you do is tell lies. Lie after lie after lie. Take the vaccine, do the right thing. But when it goes wrong, you're left in the gut. You're left to rot. We will not acknowledge you. You will not get the money that you deserve. I've spent 30 grand to try and get my life back. And what am I left with? Myocarditis and postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Something I shouldn't even be able to pronounce, as I'm a joiner to Glasgow. Let me tell all you health professionals and so-called biologists and whoever you are, I know more about this vaccine than the lawyers. I know more about this vaccine and what it's doing to people. You want to trust the science? You want to trust the facts? You want to trust the evidence? I am the evidence! I am the pro-evidence that you don't want to talk about!
We are all the experiment for there.
All of you are standing here, thank you. If you lost your job, thank you. If you are put to the side and people called you crazy, I'm sorry. I never done it. The mainstream media done it to you all, and they done it to your family.
They're still doing it.
Are we going to let them continue doing it? No, we're not.
They're protected.
You know, Glasgow, Scotland, we've been known to be quite a hard fucking city and a hard country. What happened to us? What are we doing with a woman with short back and sides, telling us how to run our country? Trying to ruin our kids, trying to give kids a vaccine that doesn't even do its job. Nicola Sturgeon, you hear my words here? You will see myself and Alex Mitchell in your Parliament building in the near future. Trust me when I say it. So, Nicola Sturgeon, listen to my words right here, right now. Fuck you. I'm going to wrap this up because I appreciate you all. Like I said, 18th of March, Glasgow. Will you stand with myself and Alex Mitchell and fellow vaccine injured? 18th of March, we will be bringing the Truth Be Told campaign to Glasgow. I need you all to stand proud with us, because we'll stand proud with you. I promise you, I love yous all. And do me a fucking favour and bring the fucking noise.
So that appears to be it for the speakers. So we'll end the live stream here.